it's profound. Teleportation, because again, we're talking about shifting one's rate of vibration, frequency, which has nothing to do with sitting on a beautiful rock and meditating in water and saying love and light all day long. It has to do with what you can phase into and phase out of based on your thoughts.
The first thing I thought of when I heard of the words cosmic frequency, I heard of, or at least I thought of like frequency in the universe, like
Mm,
everything is frequency, right? So, but then I started kind of really thinking about it, and I was like, well, frequency also reminds me of sound.
right.
How would you define cosmic frequency? What does that mean?
So if we start just with frequency, so frequency is a multi-layered thing. So you have the frequency of how frequent something happens, then you have the frequency of a sound or a sound wave, then you have the frequency as a rate of movement or vibration, right? So it's kind of like how frequent something happens, but cosmic frequency, the way I use it, would be the more like the sound, more like the energy of the cosmos. You're entering into the same resonance as cosmic intelligence. So cosmic frequency is literally a atmosphere where people can move into a different frequency or bandwidth, higher vibration, higher resonance, higher harmonics, and have an interstellar experience. So my
Wow.
goal, yeah, is to bring cosmic awareness to the human experience. So there's not this gap in, well, the ETs are this and the humans are that, where humans see themselves as mature, spiritually mature, and able to transcend, yeah, their own perceived weaknesses. So that's it in
Mm.
a nutshell. That's short and sweet to the point. Cosmic
Yeah,
frequency.
I love that. I love that. So, what's some benefits of raising your frequency? Let's say someone's struggling with something personal and they're the human body that they're in. Like, what are
Mm.
some benefits to do that?
All right. So a lot of people think that frequency is, like I said, it's just about the sound, but it
Mhm.
really has to do with could have like how fast something is going. So how frequent something is happening. So we think of time. This brings us back to time. So your one's rate of vibration or oscillation is directly correlated to their health and well-being. Everything connects to everything. So, for example, if someone has an illness or whatever, they would probably have a low frequency.
Mm.
Well, what would that mean? That would mean that they don't have access to higher forms of wellness. Those higher forms could be qigong, yoga, meditation, herbs, minerals, sun gazing, grounding. But in their reality, their frequency is so low that they don't even know that that's a possibility, because those kind of levels of thinking exist in a bandwidth and a frequency range at a
Mhm.
specific harmonic. So when someone's not feeling well, the first thing people, not everyone, but people would like to do is go get a Tylenol or something like this, because they're at that frequency where that's the level of information that they can interpret as far as wellness. So if you think of like a scale 1 to 12, if someone's sitting at a 1, they only have access to the things that are at that first level. So when you raise your frequency, you now have access to what's at level 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up to 12.
Mhm.
That's a very simple example. But the thing is, we have access to 1 through 12 all the time. So when you raise your frequency, you now make yourself resonant and in alignment with those higher levels of wellness, consciousness, spirituality. It's all there, but you have to match the frequency, which is really just your thoughts. Your thoughts are a frequency.
I
Did
love
that,
that.
did I answer the question?
Yeah, no, you more than answered my question. That's perfect.
Okay.
So, tell me about your experience with frequency and learning about it. When did that start for you? Tell me about how you felt when it all clicked and you realized that you can actually use that information to help others.
Okay, so when did it all start and when did it click and when could I use that as information? So when did it start? I remember, I don't know, I just had a random thought. I just get these random thoughts. And I remember going like this. I'm like, this is literally everything. Like everything exists like within this little space right here. And that sounds like a simple statement, but what I realized in that moment is that I'm only going to experience what I can interpret of reality. So again, it's all here. And from there, I knew that like certain sound, like if I ooh, mm, these different tones set a different vibration, different harmonic, and that harmonic and those frequency, that harmonic is the frequency, which is the information. So I realized that, this space right here, which contains everything, is just information. So a frequency is a set of harmonics or a set of etheric pulse rhythms that I like to say, which is just repeated bursts of ideas and consciousness from the source or the ether that then coalesce within themselves to become a thing, a node or a standing wave. From there, those standing waves will create what's called cymatics. I love cymatics. So for me, it was the realization that sound and tone can create different shapes in the ether. Those shapes are considered information, and different sets of information or shapes have within them the healing power or potential from which they are created from. So, for example, a circle has a certain healing potential, a triangle, a pyramid, but they can all be generated from frequency or sound. So when I realized this, I was like, whoa, this is really powerful. And people need to know that shapes are just cymatics or frozen sound or frozen frequency. That's all it is. Everything is literally frozen sound. And
Hmm.
so I wanted to help share this with people because I thought that if people could even just focus on different geometries. I don't know. So when you realize that different shapes have different healing potentials, you start to use spirals. You start to use the cross. You start to use different shapes to bring different effects into your life because the shape influences the ether, and this is what we're going to be talking about a bit in the academy. So yeah, I just was like, people are trying to do all these things, and it's like you got to understand how the energy works and how the frequency leads to the shape, leads to the function. So there's this quote when you study some of the ancient architectures of the world: form follows function.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Okay, cool. So, how did you feel when you made that aha moment? Like, how did it change your life?
So I'm still trying to figure out the lighting. You can keep this because I want people to know that.
It's fine. Yeah, you're fine.
um, how did how did it change my life? The aha moment. Freedom. I think freedom was a big word. I realized that reality isn't hidden from anyone. It's just, again, you have to be in the place to be able to interpret the information that you want to receive. You have to be at the consciousness level where the information is to access the secrets. And so for me, it was freedom. It was the ability to have a deeper control and deeper ability to work with the source or ether. So whenever I started to apply this in my life, I mean, I do that. This is, kind of an ether resonator. I call them. Um, it was life changing in the most simple ways that lead to the most profound things. So, for example, I had a stuffy nose a little bit ago, a couple weeks ago, and my nose was it was like really, really runny. And I knew that sound is a thing, frequency is a thing. So I would start humming. Mm. And when you hum, what are you doing? You're creating harmonic resonance, which generates the frequency. And based on the rate of vibration of your hum, you get a certain result. And so as I was humming, I literally cleared my stuffy nose, my runny nose, less than 24 hours, easily.
Hmm.
So you start to learn how to take this level of knowledge, information, and apply it in your everyday life. And that's what it's meant to do. You're meant to use and work with cosmic frequency, not to just teleport and do all these amazing things, which we're going to be able to do, but also just to change your life in the most subtle ways, just be more comfortable. I don't want to stuff your nose. I don't want to take over the counter medications. I'm going to use my own technology and hum. I know the science of this now.
That's so cool. Okay,
So cool.
let's talk about some methods that someone can use to raise their frequency. I know you just spoke about humming.
Mm.
Um, let's talk about some other methods that someone might be able to do that they might, even methods that they might already be doing without even realizing it.
Yeah. So again, a lot of people think that raising your frequency is just being in a good mood and sitting there and meditating and like looking at the flowers and love and light. That's not it. That's like a small part of it.
Mm.
But raising your frequency means changing your relationship to time. It's when I talk about cosmic frequency on this level, I'm talking about the rate of vibration in which we interact with reality. So, for example, you and I are at the same pulse rhythm. We're having this conversation. So you would see a consistent standing wave. If you could see with your eyes, that you would see a consistent field of energy being organized between us. Raising your frequency means, in this example, if I raise my frequency, I would shift the rate of vibration to become faster or slower. And so when I shift it to become faster, I'm no longer in phase with you. So then I would the conversation would shift, the energy would feel different. If I get really good at it, I would just disappear. And I'd become connected to the realm where that raised frequency is. So what I want people to understand when it comes to raising your frequency, don't just focus on being a good person and doing what's right. That should be kindergarten 101. That should just be what you do because that's just who you are. When we're talking about raising your frequency through cosmic frequency and things like the academy and ether physics, we're talking about your rate of vibration, meaning your perception. So you look outside you see someone walking down the street. You by default setting are consciously observing them walking at a whatever speed they're walking at.
Mm-hmm.
Shift your mind for 30 seconds and just imagine them walking really, really slow. You imagine them walking really, really slow or really, really fast. When you do this, like these little mental exercises, you are telling your consciousness that you are now moving at a different frequency, speed, velocity. Everything's relative, right? So if I'm observing someone walking really, really slow, what does that mean about me? I'm doing what? Moving really, really fast in correlation to them.
Hmm.
So shifting your frequency is about shifting your perception. When you shift your perception, you shift your rate of vibration. When you shift your rate of vibration, you shift what you are in resonance with. Again, it goes back to thoughts. So yeah, how you observe the world and how you interpret your thoughts determines your frequency.
I agree with that. I think that overall, it's basically like just mindfulness, is I think is the best buzzword to use. The way that we view things, the way that we perceive things. I'm really big on talking about how we are always doing the best that we can in every moment in our life, because that is our theme of consciousness in that moment.
Right.
So if we want to raise our frequency, it's basically if we want to raise our consciousness, if we want to heal ourselves eventually, then the best thing to do is to, like you said, look at the world in different eyes. Maybe the eyes of someone who isn't from this realm, the eyes of an alien, because technically we are aliens, but that's another story.
No, we are. You're right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. So let's talk about the really cool things that can happen when we raise our frequency, as much as you're willing to share, because I know most of this information's in Cosmic Academy.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but I want to go with kind of what you were saying, because I think you're bringing up some really, really good points, and it can be that subtle, right? I want to bring this up so people can see it now.
Yeah.
It can be that subtle. It could be a matter of what I like to say, clear-minded, right? So being clear-minded versus mindful When you're clear-minded, your mind is clear. When your mind full, your mind is full, right? So little shifts like that change your perception and how you navigate. And how you're navigating is based on the thoughts that you're thinking. And
Right.
so, yes, people can certainly take what you just said and apply it in a very humble and subtle way, but it'll lead to really big changes in their
Mhm.
lives. So, I just wanted to highlight that because I thought that was a great point.
Thank you.
Um, yeah. What was that question you just asked?
The question was, let's say, what are
Oh,
the
the
fun
cool thing.
things? Yeah, what are the fun things people can learn to do when they raise their frequency?
Oh man. So we're gonna have a whole star temple, and I'm gonna have in-person teachings around all this stuff. But
Yeah.
you know, part of the cool things are set aside for an advanced consciousness, right? So that might sound like, oh, they think they're better than us because they're advanced. It's not that. It's the difference between a kid knowing how to tie their shoe and not knowing how to tie their shoe. You have different modes of access based on your state of being.
Hmm.
So based on your mindset. When we're talking about the really cool things, that comes with spiritual progression. That comes with a rite of passage in spiritual maturity, because these abilities and these functions, you can't give a kindergartner a lighter, kind of thing. But with that said, time manipulation, that's one of the things I'll touch base on in the academy, is time manipulation and how to literally move through time, what time really is, time travel, things like this. When you really understand what frequency is, you see that time is not something set in stone. It's a series of numbers that can be punched into a computer. It's profound. Teleportation, because again, we're talking about shifting one's rate of vibration, frequency, which has nothing to do with sitting on a beautiful rock and meditating in water and saying love and light all day long. It has to do with what you can phase into and phase out of based on your thoughts. So teleportation becomes more of a science than a mystical experience. They can go hand in hand, but there is an ether physics principle behind it that goes with the mindset required to do it. What are some other cool things? Instant healing of your body. Um, what some would call quantum jumping or timeline skipping,
Hmm.
because again, when you're sitting and you're thinking of something, you're generating the frequency that then gives you the experience. So people want to change their lives or get out of a situation for better or for worse. Um, it really is a thought away. So, you got
I love that.
teleportation, yeah, time manipulation,
Healing yourself.
healing yourself, skipping ahead into different spheres of yourself, boom, 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 jumping through the ethers. Yeah, it becomes fun.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that you mentioned that I'm definitely interested in. So
Mhm.
I'm one of the people that struggle with time. I
Mm,
think it's like whole generations. We all do it. It's kind of like ingrained in our body where we feel like we're running out of time in our life to do the things that we are passionate about. And I'll even guilt trip myself sometimes and say, okay, I haven't seen my friends in months because I'm hyper fixating on something. I'm running out of time.
I'm running
You
out
know,
of time.
when I get
Mhm.
older and I have no friends because I decided to be on my computer for 8 hours out of the day.
Right.
Time comes up a lot in everyone's life. And I
Yeah.
think it's something that we all struggle with every once in a while. Another thing that you mentioned was when you mentioned that you can shift different timelines
Hmm.
and go to different dimensions. What reminded me of that is manifestation. In one of your recent Instagram videos, you talked about manifestation and talked about
Mm.
how if we were able to envision what we want and then energetically feel what we want, we can have it. And part of that is what you're getting to is part of that is raising your frequency and
Exactly.
bringing it into your awareness. And tell me how that connects with jumping timelines. What does timeline have to do with that?
So you can't talk about one thing without understanding the other things. It's all connected. It literally is. So, and you said it beautifully. When you change your frequency, you could also be saying that you're time skipping or time jumping. Then you get into what is a timeline. So let's talk about what the timeline is. So I don't like to say it's not necessarily a timeline.
Mhm.
And what time is awareness of self. When you're aware of what you are, you're aware that you're something, you create linear progression for experience so that you can do something, you know? So in the video, whenever I was talking about manifestation, time skipping, um, they're one and the same. Whenever you're sitting and you're thinking of something, what you're doing is you're creating a frequency. That frequency, from one angle, you could say you're raising your frequency, or I could just say you're shifting your frequency, because we start to move out of the realm of this or that and into the realm of what is, right? So we start to move into this mindset of it's not about past or future, it's about rate of vibration, focus, and gravity. So when you shift into, okay, I'm seeing myself at this event, I'm doing this thing, you're creating those ripples, those pulse waves in the ether. And one would see that as, oh, they're shifting timelines. No, they're becoming compatible with a set of ideas and concepts that are just floating around. And so as you become compatible with those set of ideas and concepts, sooner or later you then become that experience. So it's not that you're going anywhere or that you're obtaining anything or that you're getting something. It's more of you are unfolding and becoming a match for the experiences that you want to have.
That's so cool. I love that. I
It's
really
magic.
do, because I think a lot of people, especially visual people like me, when who see word or hear words like jumping and moving and changing,
Mhm.
transforming, we're actually
Mhm.
picturing turning into something. When in
Right.
reality, technically you are, yes, but you're not literally jumping into a whole new timeline
Right.
where
Yeah.
so
I mean, yeah, like the technology, we can get to the point where we will be able to have starships or teleport our bodies, and it will be that kind of movement. But again, these are the preliminaries to understand the concepts and develop the psyche and maturity needed to actually handle that level of movement. So, yeah, a lot of times, yeah, you're right. People hear like, well, instant manifestation, and they think that's just going to appear in their hand. I experience instant manifestation all the time, but this is how it goes. I just had this happen. Let me try to think of
Mhm.
what just happened. Just like it doesn't matter. I'll think of something. I'll do a correlation here. So I'll be thinking of wanting to experience eating an apple or something, right? And then I'll just look over, no, in my house or something, and I'll see a toy apple on the floor, and that's just one example of how that's instant manifestation, because what we're working with is the matrix. The matrix is literally a series of numbers. Those series of numbers represent harmonics. Those harmonics come together to create a frequency. Those frequencies come together to create a node or a standing wave that we call material reality, right? So
Mhm.
let's backtrack. Chris is thinking of wanting to eat an apple. What is he doing? The numbers are moving around to generate the experience of eating an apple. As he thinks about it, the best way that the matrix could give me that result in that moment, that made the most sense to fit into that moment, was toy apple on the floor. You see, so was that toy there before? Was it I don't know, but it's this level of interaction and awareness that you get to, where we say that's instant manifestation. But that's how it happens. It's a very real thing, but not in this hocus pocus, boom, magic appear in my hand kind of thing.
Yeah, there's this spiritual teacher, and of course, I don't remember his name right now, but he talks about how nothing exists until we think about it and until we see it.
Hmm.
It becomes, that's when it kind of like forms itself himself. And I'm like, that's so interesting, because can you imagine how much power we have if we realize that the things that we want are literally just a thought away?
That's what it is.
Have it. It's crazy.
That's it though. That's
Yeah.
that's the truth. And it's not that they it's not that they don't exist until we think of it. It's that everything exists. But let's break down the word exist. What does exist means? Exio stance, to stand outside of the self.
Is
Well,
that
what
Latin?
is, I believe so, yes. Exio stance, to stand outside the self. Existence,
Hmm.
right? So what does this mean?
Hmm.
We go deeper. Exio stance, to stand outside the self. Existence. We don't we don't experience something, until we are thinking of it. Well, what that means is there is kind of a source, a field of energy that can stand outside of itself. And we call that movement from the is to the isness
Mhm.
existence. So we are literally watching the sources or the ethers, which is us, our own projections and thoughts and ideas. And so what's the limit to that? There is none. Existence is the experience of the source being able to experience itself as something other than pure potential. And this is really, we're going to have to go back and listen to this a couple of times because this is really deep stuff. But if you can grasp the concept here, the idea that we don't experience something, what was it that, how do you say it?
That we need to see it or think about it before it's actually being
In,
correct. Well, technically, that's not really what he said. He basically was just saying that um, we kind of create our own reality. In order to create it, we have to have like the thought in a way.
right, right.
Manifest. Yeah.
So right, okay, good. So we're still tracking, right? So
Right.
basically, existence is anything and everything. It's
Mhm.
it's whatever you can think of. So it's not that something appears out of nowhere. It's that
Mhm.
you now become the frequency match for that. Remember, reality really is just a set of harmonics, frequencies, and numbers, just all anytime, anytime. So you stop and think of banana, boom, the numbers and ether starts to coalesce and formulate that concept that you call banana, right? So it's all here, and that's the only point I'm trying to make is like it's
Mhm.
all here for us, and we're the ones who get to decide what part of reality we experience based on our frequency.
Right.
Again,
We learn all this in Cosmic Academy, right? Like if that's what
oh
some
my
people.
God, yeah.
Yeah.
Am I giving too much away? Yeah,
No.
um, yeah.
Don't.
So we're gonna be. This is something that we're gonna dive into in Cosmic Academy, and the way I
Uh-huh.
share it in there is more digestible, and there's steps involved, there's videos, there's things that you can do in your everyday life that you might not think are applicable, but they set the foundation for these deeper levels of experience. So yeah, Cosmic Academy is going to be launched within the next probably couple of days here. So
Okay.
yeah.
Awesome. All right. Let's see. Frequency. Give me a second to think of my next question.
Yeah.
Hmm. What's some? Oh, that's what it was. Okay. Tell me about something that you realized about yourself when you started raising your frequency. Something that's
Mm.
made it a little bit more. I don't want to say powerful, but increased your awareness.
Oh, great question. So what changed? What did I realize about myself? I figured out that I had access to the Akashic records, and because I realized that there's no limit other than the limit I set for myself, and so I started to be able to access information, knowledge, and wisdom that I didn't read in a book, and it just came through because when you raise your frequency again, what are you doing? You're shifting your rate of vibration, meaning you're now at a different perceptual range for different thoughts and ideas.
Mhm.
And so whenever I realized about myself, I knew that all I really need to do to figure something out was to sit in meditation and hold the thought of the thing or retain the thought of the thing I want to discover, and I get the answer. And this is what I call having a noetic mind. So to answer your question, I realized that I could access information at will, giving myself enough time, really focusing. That was really cool. But then also how I can shift and manipulate reality in a beneficial way. So don't get all weird people like, oh my God, he's manipulating reality. We all do it. But I'm doing it consciously as a Jedi, right?
Yeah.
Like quite literally. Um, so no, you're talking about things like magic abilities, ether bending. It became part of my everyday life, part of how I just navigate reality now because I'm at a different state of realization within myself.
Okay, cool.
Be cool.
You mentioned two things there that I wanted you to expand on a little bit. So, can you explain more about what the Akashic records are?
Ooh, are you ready for this one? Okay, so the Akashic records are so most of these like new age and spiritual topics have gotten what's the word like washed out, oversaturated, basically. And they've lost the essence of what they are, of what they were meant to be. So the Akasha Records isn't a place that you go to. It's again a state of mind, and it's a set of a field of information. It's the source again. But you can have smaller Akashic records. So for like you and me working through cosmic frequency, we have the Akashic record, the information of cosmic frequency, its own little bubble, right? Then you have your own personal set of Akashic records and your soul's experiences and what it's been through, what you've discovered and learned. Then you have the collective Akashic record field, and then it kind of goes on and on. So whenever I say I have access to the Akashic records, I mean that I have let myself get rid of the limitations of I'm just Chris and here in this body. I know that part of myself, but as you expand your awareness, you recognize that it's not about you, that you with the capital U or capital Y is the collective field of energy that you are part of. And so the individualization of Chris is a part of the collective of humanity, the star people, the planet, the source. And so when I expand my mind, I can now access those levels of information that aren't just located directly from Chris. And we call that the Akashic records.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's funny because whenever I picture Akashic records, I picture a big library, like in the Page Master,
Mm-hmm.
old Disney
Yeah.
movie. Yeah, I picture it all
Yeah.
the time, and I know what you're saying though, that it's not necessarily a library. It's just
Well, yeah.
yeah, it's basically like just information. It's kind of like a data stream of
Yeah.
everything that's always happened.
That's
Everything
it.
yeah.
And if you ask yourself, well, why am I picturing a library? Because again, association. And
Mhm.
this is cool because you get to see that how the mind and how the human kind of operates. Why do we all picture a library? Because libraries hold information.
Mhm.
And so the brain is always trying to associate, to make familiar, to relate, right? So we try to minimize high levels of concepts in a way that we can digest it. So we see a library, and where that's kind of a misnomer because it holds the intention, but it's also bigger than what the intention can even be pictured as in a library. So we have the Akashic records, which is the fundamental stream of consciousness, like you said, that one has access to based on where they're at in relation to that stream of consciousness.
I love that. And I think the greatest thing about accessing your Akashic records is it helps you kind of like understand the way that you think and the decisions that you make in your life, understand better who you are.
Yes.
You get a chance to kind of have a better human experience in a way.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes.
Yeah. Raising your
Yes.
frequency allows you to access your Akashic records. And then you also
Hmm.
mentioned noetics. So
Hmm.
what does it mean to have a noetic mind, you said?
Yeah. Yeah. I love what you just said though. That was spot on. Yeah. Raising your frequency allows you to access the Akashic records, allows you to access other parts of yourself. That is that's so cool because you can now have the ability to you can learn from yourself. We say past life or past self, but it's not really. It's just another part. It's like when we talk about frequency skipping or time skipping, it's not about past or future. It's just about moving focus points, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
So, yeah. So noetics. I have a noetic mind, meaning my inner experience, my inner thoughts. I have access to what some, again, would call the source or the etheric realm or the Akashic records,
Mhm.
and I just know things noetically without needing to research, figure them out. It comes to me. So there's a whole institute called the Institute of Noetics, which I knew nothing about because I discovered noetics noetically. I was sleeping, and often in my astral experiences, I receive information because when you're astral traveling or dreaming, you're usually in a higher realm than the contemporary 3D. So now you have access to what? More information because you're not localized to the contemporary thoughts that everyone's thinking in the 3D circle.
Mhm.
You've risen above. Now there's this other dimension, which is just a set of frequencies, which are just thought waves that you have access to. So as I'm sleeping in this astral experience, I keep hearing the word noetic, noetic, noetic. And I'm like, okay, well, what the heck does that mean? I know by now through experience, this is a transmission, information. Wake up, write it down so I don't forget it in the morning. And once I wake up, decide to look up noetics, and I'm like, oh my God, there's a whole institution based on this level of thought. And I was like, that is absolutely amazing. So
Yeah.
yeah, I figured out noetics noetically.
That's
Really,
awesome.
yeah, it was
Yeah,
really
I
cool.
think that's what I love about like whenever you're I guess I would say still because whether you're meditating or not, but if your
Mhm.
mind is still enough to like receive those messages from your higher self, like you start getting like these intense downloads and it's just like, wait, where'd that name come from? You look it up like you did, and it's an actual whole institute. It's intense. Yeah. I
So
love when
cool.
that happens.
Yeah, and
Um,
just imagine if we could do that consistently as a group of people. Just imagine how powerful that would be if people were still enough inside. Like you said, I love that it's not sitting like this all the time. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's washing dishes, and you're just
mhm.
letting your mind kind of be permeated by the higher ethers, and
Yeah.
there's information there.
Exactly, exactly. So let's talk about frequency and raising your vibration when it comes to the relationships with people in your life. So, do you have a family?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I do.
How
Yep.
has that correlated, like raising your own frequency? Is this something you're teaching your children? Um,
Mm,
like, how does that work if you had a family? And this is in regards to anyone else who's listening to this. How
yeah.
they might be able to kind of like not control per se, but say, lead by
Set the tone.
example in
Yeah,
a way.
yeah. Well, it's a double-edged sword, and it can go either many different directions because families are so nuanced and they get very interesting. But as far as me and my family, and I think a lot of it is leading by example, and a lot of times you begin to control your own frequency and thoughts so much that you don't have to say anything, just your presence. Because you understand that words are just a reflection of the thoughts that you're thinking and the
Mhm.
feelings that you're feeling. So why not just think and feel and permeate the field? And this is something I teach in the academy is how to seed thoughts into the collective or a group setting, which you should only do for pure purposes only, because this is one of those abilities of understanding frequency modulation that can be used for nefarious reasons. But we do not condone that. No one here at Cosmic Frequency, puts up with that. With that said, um, you can have a tremendous impact on the people around you. And again, this could be for better or for worse, because sometimes as you raise your frequency, if the people around you are not, it can create dissonance and discord, right? And so some things could come up and you kind of experience this tension and this uncomfortability. But the opposite is true too, where if you're raising your frequency, doing what's best for your well being, being in service to others the best way you can without being depleted, um, you'll see the people around you grow and expand. And now they're having thoughts that are more expansive and more clear minded without you really doing anything other than just on yourself. But again, there's a law called the law of dominant frequency. So the dominant frequency, for better or for worse, is what people are going to experience around you.
a person walks into the room and let's say their energy isn't something that's positive, like they have
Hmm.
a very low vibration, I guess I would say. I can't stand
Hmm.
saying that, but whatever. And you can feel their vibration. Now, are you saying that because they have the most dominating vibration in the room, whether it be low or very high, that's what's going to kind of be over everyone else's?
Yes, I am. And it's like this, dominant or strongest in the form of most consistent. That's what it is. It's more
Okay.
about consistency and focus of whatever the frequency or thought is. So again, if someone's meditating every day and really working on themselves, then they're setting what? They're setting a frequency field. They're
Hmm.
creating an etheric rhythm, this a pattern in the ether. And the more that they do that, the stronger that pattern becomes. So their aura starts to exude this energy. You might walk in the room and people say, wow, you have amazing energy. It's because you've strengthened your field through the thoughts that you're thinking, the ways you take care of yourself, yada, yada, yada. Now, what happens if someone walks in the room, like you said, and they have a negative frequency and everyone can feel it? It's not so much that they're bringing everyone down. It's more that what happens is the field is trying to balance itself out. So if you
Hmm.
have someone that's super high frequency and you have someone who's super low frequency, the field is going to want to harmonize and bring them into coherence. So the high frequency person on some level is going to have to lower their frequency, and this person will have to raise it. Why? To have correspondence and relation and communication. This is a big reason why a lot of extraterrestrials have a hard time on planet Earth. It's not because there are these love and light beings and floating around and invisible beings, which, yes, some are, but it's more so because the thoughts and the environment and the telepathic field that we're all part of is so dense and it just makes them sick. And
Hmm.
I've experienced this. It's frequency dissonance where you walk into a room and the frequency is so strong there that it's just incompatible and you just get nauseous, and people call this being empathic, but it's really about the ether looking to harmonize itself and trying to find
Hmm.
zero point and balance.
That is so interesting because I've personally felt that way, specifically at the Conscious Life Expo.
Hmm.
And before it was very like brief, but at the Conscious Life Expo, I think it was Saturday, I walked in the room and I felt like I was going to throw up every 3 seconds. It was
Hmm.
bad. It was like the
Hmm.
worst feeling ever. So it's interesting because I contributed that to being empathic. And what you're
Hmm.
saying, sometimes it's not being empathic; it's the fact that you're not in resonance with the frequency that's dominant in the room.
Exactly,
So
exactly, and that could be for better or for worse. You know, yeah. And there was something else. Oh, so it's like if a group of people, like if you're a starseed, whatever a starseed, indigo, star walker, whatever terms we want to use, um, the matrix itself has to make sense of you. What is the matrix? The matrix is just the collective thoughts and feelings and emotions of the beings and the subjects within a particular field. If I were to jump off of my starship in my full form, the matrix would have to make sense as to why I'm there. So what it does is it tries to assimilate you. It tries to put you into its mode of understanding you. So this is why a lot of people who are here to do the great work or be in service in this way will feel diminished and not misunderstood because they're being looked at through a system, a mode of thoughts that can only understand up to a certain perspective. Again, their frequency is set at a certain range. So you're coming from a different range and you've entered into their realm, and they can only see you through their frequency bandwidth, no matter
mm,
how amazing you are. So in their eyes, you get brought into their realm. Again, it's all ether physics to make sense and have some sort of commonality. The opposite is true. You take someone from Earth and they go into a different planet of a high frequency, they're going to get assimilated into that high frequency.
I like that. I like that idea because that kind of brings me into one of the questions that I had. And that is, could being around someone who is vibrating low, who is has a really low frequency, could that benefit you in a way that it could raise your frequency? Like, let's say, for example, you have a friend,
Mhm.
you've got to the point in your life where you change your consciousness level, but that friend is still in that, on that
Mm.
level, which I don't like saying, but for the sake of this example,
Yeah, the
um,
words that they are.
exactly. So you're still hanging out with this particular friend, and you notice that it's actually making you physically ill to be around them
Mhm.
because of what you just mentioned,
Mhm.
just not being compatible. Could it also benefit the person that is trying to continue raising their frequency by being around someone who isn't?
Could it benefit them if they're around people who are on their at
From
their frequency?
who isn't? Yeah, basically, from a perspective level. Let's say, for instance, they're able to kind of see
Oh,
clear where they used to be. It's like, "Oh, I
yes,
used to think that way too, but
yes.
now I don't. I see why." And thank you for that reminder. Could, in a way, it's more of like, and I can't remember the word right now, but
Could
you
say
get a chance.
compassion.
Yeah, exactly.
Compassion. Yeah, exactly. And again, so we use words high, low, level, and these aren't to diminish or to uplift anyone. It's the words that we have to use for commonality. It's agreed concept of human language. So people watching don't feel like we're doing all this. It's just level of communication.
Mm,
With that said, there's always an energetic exchange between two souls, for better or for worse, for two forms of energy all the time. So the high frequency individual, now, why are they high frequency? They're high frequency because they have access to more information. So that makes their DNA and their thought pattern more complex. So they can experience more because of the complexity of their consciousness now. Now, you take someone who's not at that space or in that realm, they are only able to perceive maybe a third of what the other individual of higher frequency can. So that means their thought patterns are not as complex. They're not as elaborate. It's more chill. It's more simple. But that also means they only have access to a certain series of thoughts and feelings and experiences and concepts. So when you put these two people together, something's going to happen. If they're emotionally mature enough, they will be able to see the benefit. The person who is looking to raise their frequency will be able to look at the other person as a point of reference, right?
hmm
The person whose frequency is raised will be able to recognize the other as themselves in a way, right? And have compassion, not from self like Chris, but from self as the source, and see them as another part of them on a different part of the journey. Right.
Absolutely.
So it's
Yep.
more like a parallel self that, okay, cool. I remember what that was like. Yeah, I remember going through that. And then you just develop
Mhm.
compassion and camaraderie in those
That's
situations.
the truth. That is so. So when you mentioned compassion, at first wasn't really sure which direction you were going to go with that,
Hmm.
but it really is about compassionate because we are everyone and they are us. We are all connected. Like, and that's science. That's like a proven fact
Thank
now. We
you.
are all energetically connected, and
Yes.
something that I consider whenever I shy away from hugging someone, because technically I'm hugging myself.
Mm,
If they need that intimacy in that moment for whatever reason, then maybe I should just give it to them because maybe I
mhm,
do as well, or else I wouldn't
mm,
have a problem with it. I
yeah.
mean, and that's just an example, a personal example for me. But like right now, I've started this practice of going around and hugging trees,
Mm,
regardless of where the tree is. I don't care if it's in a rural area or in the
yeah.
middle of a town and I look crazy as hell. You know,
Hmm.
hugging
Hmm.
trees because talk about the most wise thing on the planet. What is wise whenever you consider the word wise is someone that's been around for a long time, right? And even though that's not true, wisdom doesn't come with age.
Right.
Um, when I think of nature, it'd be trees,
Yeah.
and I would love the idea of to have when I picture a tree personified, it'd be like
Mm,
an older man who knows everything.
mm, mm,
I
yeah.
can hug an older man who knows everything, so I'm gonna go hug a tree.
Well, exactly. And that logic it tracks. It makes sense and it can hold its own weight. And why trees? Trees have a very high frequency field. Now,
Mhm,
we just said that frequency is rate of vibration and speed. in velocity. If you have a higher speed, higher velocity, you have access to more information, right?
Yeah.
There's It's not a coincidence that trees are shaped like tendrils and
Mhm.
well, I forget what that lightning pattern's called, because that's like the neurons in the brain. It's literally the receptors. It's like our hands. If you ever stood outside, and this I love to do this. If you just stand outside,
Mhm.
once you understand the patterns of reality, you can apply it almost anywhere, anytime.
Yeah.
Your hands look like roots and branches of a tree. When you go like this, right? These are the different branches. If you just hold your hands out, you can't really see me, but you put your arms out like this and you just stand like this, like a tree, your fingers will start to vibrate and buzz. They'll start to tingle. You might start to feel energy at the center of your palm. Why? Because you are literally accessing the quantum, don't like saying quantum, the etheric field. And at that point in time, you're gaining information. You're tuning into the web of consciousness.
Mhm.
And so this is a secret that I do whenever I just want to kind of feel, what's been going on in an area. As I'll sit and I'll kind of just let my hands do this. And I think of trees. They're doing this all the time, but what are they doing? They're reaching to the heavens and into the depths, and they're
Yeah.
bringing it all together in the center.
Which
Integrate
is which is a what? What is that called? Like a not a link, but
synapse,
what was it
like
called?
like the brain synapse. Is that what you
Oh, no, I wasn't gonna go that far. I didn't know
meant?
that. I
Yeah.
don't know what that
Well,
is.
what is it? Well, the tree is like it's like a connector, right? And they're
Yeah,
very powerful beings. So
antenna. Antenna is the word I
antenna,
was looking.
yes, yes.
That's so interesting, and I don't know, I love this type of stuff because that kinda, like, leads me into the I'm not sure if you've seen the video of the lady who's pregnant, and she has, like, these 2, wires that you connect to plants, and, she connects it to a cactus,
Mm,
and the wires are connected to a speaker, and you're able to hear the frequency, like, the sound that the plant makes in the speaker,
right.
and I'm just like, that is such a beautiful thing that nature has its own frequency,
Of
you know?
course. You know,
So, when
yeah.
considering that, tell me about how you integrate that in your everyday. Like, I know that you like hiking, that's something we talked about in the past.
Hmm, hmm.
Are you considering the frequency of nature? Are you around certain plants? Do you grow certain plants?
So I'm not the best gardener, but I am a really good communicator with nature. Honestly, some of my deepest, no, probably my most deepest noetic insights have come through sitting under a tree or sitting by a stream, being surrounded by the frequencies of nature,
Mhm.
because nature itself. Now, we speak in this way like nature itself, or what do you think about nature, as if nature is a separate entity. I am nature. We are
Mhm.
nature. And that is no different than the apple that falls from the tree. That apple holds within it the seeds of that tree. They're one and the same, different forms of the same thing. Human beings are that. We are nature. And when we see ourselves as nature, what do? We literally plug into that source of intelligence that is us, and our frequency is raised, our bodies are healed, we're touching the ground, we're hugging trees. And so, yeah, what I like to do, I love going for hikes. I really like sitting by water and meditating. And I communicate with nature in a way that is more auric or more thought based, not thought as in I'm thinking about saying, "Hey tree, how are you?"
Yeah.
More of a frequency, it's more of a feeling tone
Mhm.
where I'm sitting and I'm literally feeling my field grow bigger and bigger. And as I'm doing that, I'm focusing on different feeling tones, whether that's love or peace or well being. And there's this feedback that happens, and I'm sure many different times nature has sent me specific dreams. Trees have told me their names. There's a pine tree in our backyard named Tiru. And when I looked up Tiru, it was, what the heck was it? Let me see if I can find it.
Mhm.
When I looked up Tiru, it had a very specific meaning about, and it was exactly kind of what I was feeling from the tree. Um, can't find it. It's right. Trees can teach you a lot. The pine tree taught me about DNA and how it actually heals the myelin sheath of the DNA. That's why I could stay evergreen. So all this is just information and frequency exchange, and it's
Yeah,
wonderful. Yeah, nature, sun
it is
gazing.
really beautiful.
Yeah,
Beautiful is the correct word for sure. Like
yeah.
I think about it because I love being in nature. I love stepping outside specifically and being around a lot of trees.
Mm-hmm.
And that's funny because whenever I travel and I go to states where there's mountains and things and like real forests, not
Mm-hmm.
hot, sunny, Floridian desert land and gators is what we
Yeah.
get, swampland. I'm talking about mountains and forests and moss.
Mm-hmm.
I feel so connected with nature. And
Yeah.
I know that leads to some past lives or technically some current lives, but
Yeah. There you go.
but yeah, so I'm really happy that you shared that with me.
It's
So
a big part of my life. It's so important for me to be in those kind of nature settings. Yeah.
okay. Is there
Yeah.
anything else that you want to add about cosmic frequency?
I think that there's a lot always, but just really quick, you just said past lives, and then you changed it to current lives, and with that mindset, you can now time skip into those current lives, and it's very easy. You could save that for the academy.
Well, that in another episode because it also ties into my dreams, and I definitely want to talk about that
Okay.
too. So,
But as far as cosmic frequency, really, it is the atmosphere where the soul can expand and flourish. Because we know that here at Cosmic Frequency, the soul needs a conducive atmosphere for its exploration and growth. Souls are not grown over time. I mean, souls are not all-knowing beings. They're grown over time through different experiences. And so, whether it's the academy, the free PDF, the lives that you see, the interactions and podcasts with myself and Tanisha, everything that we're doing is designed to give you a different perception of reality that then you can apply at a different frequency. Because if we offer these different perspectives, they're really just different frequencies that you can tune into. They're cosmic frequencies, cosmic stellar frequencies of information, knowledge, and wisdom for the upliftment of humanity. So if you can tune into it and feel it and apply it, that's the key here, is to take this wisdom and to apply it to your lives.
perfect. I love that. So,
Yeah.
where everyone can find Chris, you can find him on Instagram. You can find him on LinkedIn most recently. He has a website and on TikTok as well and YouTube. But the good
Mm-hmm.
news is I did everything really. I did a hold on. The good news is I made this a lot easy for you guys, and I put all the links in the description below. Don't forget to click on those links and access anything that you're interested in. On top of that, we have a couple of things coming up. You have an interview with Sean Michael Kelly at the
Mm-hmm.
Digital Social Hour podcast. You recently did an interview with George Noory on the Beyond Belief show, and
Mm-hmm.
that's on Gaia.com. There's also an affiliate link below that you can click on to get 7 days free for that, 7 day free trial. And then whatever else I'm forgetting right now is also in the description. So stay tuned for the next episode. We're talking about some really interesting things and a lot more about cosmic frequency.
And just real quick, Tanisha, thank you for everything that you're doing and the support that you offer through Cosmic Frequency. It means a lot. So you guys check out her work too. Just throwing that in there as well.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right. It was
All right,
nice talking to
everyone.
you. All right.
Peace.
Bye.